Today, we will be learning about operational excellence because we feel that sometimes we as entrepreneurs take it for granted that if you're serving, your customers, either a product or a service, that at every point in time, when people come in to experience your service or your product, that there should be as little difference as possible. And the magic that makes this happen is actually the back end work of operational excellence. Now, I am very excited to introduce our speaker here today, who is going to be doing justice to the topic. Sean Burrowes, he's the co-founder of Ingressive for Good, who are on a mission to actually empower the tech talents in Africa by training 1 million youths. Now, understand that when you're dealing with these numbers, if your operation or your back end system is not right, quality control will be zero. So that's why we are so honored to have him share with us some of his success secrets, because they have expanded from Nigeria into Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, and Rwanda. He's also the CEO of a consulting firm, an operations consulting firm called Burrowes Enterprise, where his goal is basically to help you discover operational excellence in everything that you do, so that you are able to not just successfully build your business, but to also scale it on a very large scale, so that you will stop looking at just Lagos. You will stop looking at just Nigeria and actually begin to look at the big picture and actually, widen your horizon and actually begin to say, why not South Africa? Why not Rwanda? Why not, all the other wonderful African countries that can also enjoy your services? But like I said from the very beginning, that the magic that makes going on scale happen is operational excellence. So on that note, I would like to introduce our speaker here today, Sean. Sean, we are very honored to have you. You can't imagine how excited we are for you to have given us of your time, because we know you're very busy. So thank you. So I guess basically we'll start off with getting an overview from you on what operational excellence really is. We will then ask a few questions. Definitely some of our esteemed CEOs and members of the community would also like to share some maybe pains, challenges, or questions, or basically hear from you directly. So it actually promises to be a very informal session. So a lot of times people get in touch with consultants and they don't get what they really wanted, because a lot of big terms are used and nobody really hits the nail on the head and bring it home to us, so that we can actually see ourselves in it and relate with it and actually picture being able to achieve it. So we're glad you have decided to spend time with us today to basically help us demystify the whole word operational excellence. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I had written out my own introduction, but I think we'll go with yours today. So again, thank you for inviting me. I always love to support the Venia Hub community. Earlier in our journey, you guys always had our backs, so it's only natural that I make sure I can support whenever possible. You touched on a few major things just in the introduction, but I'll just go, just drop a little bit more. Basically, since 2011, I've been focused on operations in sectors like food and beverage, telecommunications, of course, business development, consulting, community organization, and activism, different things like that. And what it amounts to now, if you see what I'm doing with Burrowes Enterprises and also with Ingressive for Good, my goal in life is to build an economic bridge between Africa and the diaspora. And there are just certain things that we need to do. So if we're talking about operational excellence, what we are talking about is processes. What we are talking about is those granular details that you're working on, that you're focusing on, and that you're tracking to make sure that you're trending towards excellence. You said it's informal, so I'll be a little informal, and I'll just just talk to everybody today so we can have a nice conversation. So with that being said, operations is if you look at you wanting to write an article, or if you want to give somebody information in a way that they won't have to come back and ask 50,000 questions. Some of you heard they'll give you the 5 W's and the H, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? So a lot of people can tell you what. A lot of people can tell you when, a lot of people can tell you where, and all these other different things. But a lot of people reserve the how. And they reserve the how, and that is the operational function of how you're going to do things, how you're going to execute, how you go from point A to point B. And in that space, I'll just give you a little bit of a story. So in this space, you have operations as you have to consider it as a journey, not necessarily a destination. Operations is something that you consistently do over and over, day by day by day. It's not cute, it's not hot, it's not sexy, it's quite boring, unless you like those type of things. But again, as my mom and my grandfather told me at a young age, if it was easy, everybody would do it. And what you see when I'm talking to, especially when I'm talking to these foreigners who want to do business in the African continent, the major thing they have an issue with is operations, consistency. How are you delivering your product and service? Where's the trust and different things like that? All of these are functions of operations. So I got into operations because I was a preacher's kid, and I was also a military child. In my entire life, everybody told me what to do. And when you're in some of these structures, especially when I was going to church 6 days a week, choir practice, all the different things you could do in church. I was mowing the grass. I was teaching Sunday school. Everything you could possibly do, I did because they told me what to do. But nobody ever really told me how to do certain things. And it got to a point where I really started looking at how do I basically understand my place in this world? How do I understand how to move from one space to another? And that's around the time when I started falling into operations. If we're taking it back, one of the major points where I got it, and please, this is a little bit spicy. I know some of us are warriors for the Lord, and I am too. It's just a little bit different, right? But I was wondering, like, how do I not go to hell? It was the discipline. It was that people were telling me all these different things. Don't sin, don't drink, don't curse, don't watch this, don't do this. But I didn't know how. Like, how am I supposed to not want to do the things that are the most tempting things in the world? And again, it was just basically me zeroing in and looking at certain things like how to be disciplined, how to manage my time. How to hold myself accountable, all of these different things where when I started working on it, it started creating this model that was useful for business. It was useful for life. It was useful for all of these other different things. And that's when I just wholly and totally dedicated myself to understanding operations, both internally and externally. So that's kind of my introduction into operations and stuff, right? So what we're going to cover today primarily, because I want to leave enough time for everybody to ask questions. But what we're going to do basically today is I'm going to talk about creating progressive processes. I'm going to talk about the scientific method for businesses, and then we're going to get into question and answer. So basically, processes are operations. Processes are how we get through every point of our life, day to day, step by step. But the messed up part about it is people don't understand. People are not tracking. People are not measuring. People are not creating the processes that they use in their life with deliberately and with intent. And again, they're not measuring it to a point that they know that if I add one process and this other process, this is going to be the outcome. So you find a lot of people who are walking around in this world, in their life, in their faith, and in their job, lost because they don't understand, why do they keep encountering the same problems? Why do I keep going through the same cycle where I have small parts of small jumps where I have success, but generally things always keep falling apart? It's the processes. So I want to get into processes, but I guess we have a chat group here, right? I think people can leave a chat. So what I would request is that if somebody wants to give me a business idea or a business concept that I can use when I'm talking about processes, or even if you want to throw me one, any business that I can use as the example. Anybody want to give me one? Anybody? Everybody? Just to make sure y'all paying attention.
I can't even think of one now.
Okay, let's use Venia Hub, right? Okay. So Venia Hub, what are the that you're trying to achieve? Like, what is the core? Okay, he said Uber. Uber's interesting. Okay. Should I do Uber or Venia Hub?
I guess you can do Uber. We can all relate. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I think Uber is actually a really good example, right? So if you guys are taking notes, and I have a deck that I use. It's also on my website, burrowesenterprises.com. This one will come from operations and remote efficiency. So there's a specific section on processes there. Again, if you're in the remote working environment, or if you're thinking about shifting over, I've dropped a few videos and different things on there. But again, a core part, if you can't work with somebody face to face, and you don't have processes and different business things in place face to face, if you've been struck by this COVID world, you're realizing the importance of processes right now, because a lot of businesses are suffering, right? So let's just jump right in. So if you want to create processes that are progressively moving you towards the goals that you want to achieve, the first thing you have to do is you have to conceptualize the process. So I think it's really interesting when you look at Uber. Uber said, how do we start a business that we don't buy cars, we don't necessarily hire people per se, they do, and all these things to be able to provide a type of sharing or offering rights to people all over the world. They had to really sit back and envision and identify and name the process. They had to really look down and see like what it is that we're doing and what value are we creating and delivering to people. So again, one of the first steps when you're conceptualizing the process is you need to identify and name the process. Figure out which process you're going to document first, determine its purpose, why, and how the process will benefit the organization. And then you need to provide a brief description of the process, right? So that's the first step. What the heck am I doing, right? The second step is define the process scope. So you want to provide a brief description of what is included in the process. What is out of the, like, what is included, what is not included, what is included, all these different things. You have to basically just understand like from a high level, what are you doing? Like, so you have a process that you're creating, and then defining the process scope helps you understand like how big it is, what's included, and all of those different parts. And then the next part is, or the last part of conceptualizing the process is you need to explain the process boundaries. When does it start? When does it end? What causes it to start? What are the triggers, and et cetera? And then how do you know when it's finished? And you have to make sure these boundaries are well defined. The reason why boundaries need to be well defined is because creating processes for the sake of processes is a waste of time. You need to be creating something that you can measure, something that you can look at it and say, this was successful, this was a failure, and there are metrics that I'm tracking that help me understand why this failed and why this was successful. All right. Let me see. I see a couple of things there. Chat. I'm just going to keep the chat open on here just in case anybody, somebody said a snail farm. Well done. So step two, to me, step two is one of the most important parts when creating a process. Step two is you need to identify your needs and resources. You need to understand and identify the process outputs. That means you need to establish what will be produced by what process, or what result the process will achieve once it's completed. Does that make sense? You just got to know exactly what you're creating. I found that when you really sit down and think about this, without thinking about this, sometimes you're making things and you're creating things that don't end up the way you thought. So again, having process, if you want to look at it from I know we chose Uber, but if you want to look at it from a carpentry standpoint, if you tell somebody, I want a couch, they will give you a couch, but they'll give you what they think is a couch and what they think is comfortable and how they think it should go. But you need to be able to, again, understand like, hey, these are the materials I want you to use. And when you're done, this is what I want it to look like. Again, you wouldn't walk up to a carpenter and say, here's the money, build me what you think I need. You need to be the one to identify what you want to create. The next one, also very, very, very important. A lot of people, they know this, but they don't track it and break it down. Identify the process inputs. List down what resources are necessary to carry out each of the process steps. So again, if we're tracking back to Uber, right? Uber's like, all right, we don't want to carry the cost of bringing in cars, and we want to be able to empower people to drive their own cars and do different things like that. But how do we track these people? How do we collect money? How do we get our portion? How do we deal with the laws and different things like that are licensing and all these other different things? You have to understand the process inputs to be able to be successful. You find a lot of people who are picking or using product inputs that may not be consistently available, which again affects your quality of service that you provide. Things that are more expensive, or you don't understand how there may be if it's a food thing. Some foods are seasonal, right? So you need to understand that, okay, I can't always get this particular product or service that feeds into mine all the time, so I need to plan accordingly. I need to start stockpiling things and different stuff like that to carry me throughout a certain period of time. Again, pay close attention to understanding what it takes to create the thing that you want to use to make money. And then, of course, the last part is just kind of brainstorm the steps. I know there's probably a lot of solopreneurs. I would say, again, bring in people who care about you. If you're a solopreneur, if you have a team, bring those people in, bring in your advisors and different things like that, and really go through the processes. Start with what triggers the process. And then go all the way down to the end. These should also include people who are directly responsible for delivering what it is you want to create when you're brainstorming the process. Again, there are things that, for me, dealing with Ingressive for Good, I'm not great at social media at all. Like I'm older, I'm an 80s baby. So social media was always used. From my perspective, it was for me to be able to share things and spy and different stuff like that, whatever y'all are doing on social media. But now the thing has changed where now social media is like your voice. Social media is where you're understanding your community, your people, your followers, your customers, and different things like that. And there's just a different relationship. So for me, that's not a strong point for me. So when it comes to brainstorming and talking about how do we improve our social media, how do we get more engagement, how do we get more people on board, I need to bring in the people who are actually going to be doing the work so I can get their insight. Again, a lot of times, especially older people in operation, and I'm not talking about y'all, I'm talking about other people, not you guys. But especially when I'm dealing with older people, they're kind of stuck in their ways where they want to dictate and tell people what to do, but they're not as willing to listen. It's almost like they feel like they're giving away a piece of their power if they're allowing other people to impact their business. There's also the classism part where it's not their place to tell me how to run my business. We need to wipe that out of our minds and be squeezing out the intelligence of every person that you have access to. So again, that's the last part of identifying needs and resources, is brainstorming the process. The next thing is to actually create your process. This one's pretty cut and dry. Organize your steps sequentially. Take a list of steps that you've come up with for whatever process you want to build. Again, this could be as simple as if you're using Uber, how to onboard a customer, or it could be as complicated as Uber wants to, how do we come up with a national policy that allows us to quickly and easily operate in all the states within the United States or other countries. So there's that part. So once you organize your steps sequentially, you know each and every step that you're going to have to engage in. Now you need to actually, now beside those steps, you need to start listing out who is involved, who's going to be participating in each one of these steps. And while you're doing that, keep in mind, you want to define their roles. Again, this is going to help you define their roles by understanding what processes they're playing a part in. But again, define their roles and keep in mind to mention their job titles and different things whenever possible. But again, one column, the steps that you're going to take for the process, the next column, what people are involved. And then the next thing you want to do basically is while you're putting this together, just be visualizing how the process works. Visualizing it will always help you, like when you're creating documentation. Again, I always say like a process doesn't exist until you write things down. You'd be surprised how many companies that I've talked to that are making a lot of money but don't even have a fully functioning business plan working. And it's one of those things where like, oh, I don't need a business plan to operate. It's like, you don't need one, but if you're able to operate at this level without one, a business plan is just going to make you operate better. So why don't you want to operate better? So again, visualize the process, create your flow charts, and neatly just visualize the steps so you can kind of share it and communicate it with others. Again, when you're creating your process, the last step, again, you're going to visualize it, but this is going to go down to creating a document. This document is what you're going to use now to bring in other people so they understand what you're doing and what is expected of them. One of the key things, or one of the major problems I see with high-level CEOs and or just people responsible for teams, is that they're able to come up with amazing ideas, plans, and processes, but they don't have a functional way to communicate what they want to do. When I say that from a visionary perspective, from okay, this is the general direction we're going in operationally, as opposed to you're just giving people tasks. So when they complete the task, they just have to either A, wait for another task, or B, come and bother you for something else. When you give people that process vision, you allow them to come and offer you insight, to come and say, hey, how about we try it this way, since I see we're going in this direction? Or, hey, you said we should do it this way, but I found that we can do it quicker if we are able to add something else in there. So like, those are the type of things you want to do. So the next part, which is going to lead us into our next section, is you need to test your process. You don't want to launch it with it being the first time you tried it, of course. So you need to have multiple ways. Again, if you're looking in the tech space, like a Uber, I'm pretty sure they had a beta where they had a controlled environment where they're having people ordering cars, taking cars, tracking, they're looking at the app, is the GPS working? When they drop it off, is it asking them to end the trip, or what happens at all of these different points? You have to test whatever the process is. And a part of that test is like, number one, you want to note what possible exceptions, and this is what testing is going to create, or what it's going to show you. But basically, what are the exceptions to the normal process flow? So you have Uber, for example. So what I'm supposed to do is jump in the car and get dropped off at a destination. But now what happens if the car breaks down? Is there a process for that? Do they call another person? What happens if the person in the back seat riding in the Uber is a complete crazy nutball? Like, am I allowed to kick them out of the car? How do I defend myself if they decide to get violent? All of these different things where you need to understand and plan for what are going to be exceptions to the normal process flow. You want to pre-plan for breakdowns and any other issues that you can think of. Another one is you want to add control points and measurements. You want to identify where risk could occur in the process and add certain things that would help process when they're coming. So like if you have an Uber, for example, if you do have a problem, they've already put in certain controls where you're rating the driver. You're allowed to give them tips and different things like that. There's a customer service line or something like that, where if something goes wrong, there's a person in the administration that you can talk to help correct your issue. So these are like control points and measurements that exist in that space. And again, once you establish the measurements to determine like how effective certain processes is, again, you just want to kind of review and test the process. So, well, it's more like review. So you want to gather everybody involved in the processes and give like major feedback on what was working, what was not working, and then adjust and adapt your plan and your processes accordingly. Again, that's why I say this is a journey, not a destination. If you look at certain processes that people have, is there any way where people can raise their hands? Is everybody on here, or maybe you can help me with this, Miss Peggy.
Yeah.
Is everybody on here owning their own business?
Yes, they are. They are the
Okay.
CEOs in the hub.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So again, you want to be able to review it and bring everybody in to be able to understand, again, that you have to, that it's a destination, not a journey. So it's like one of those things where you have to continuously do it. So if everybody in here is a CEO, is everybody in here doing quarterly reviews and different things to manage their teams? There are just certain things that you want to have in place where you're reviewing and giving people feedback on the processes that you have created. Yes. So awesome. So some people do monthly. You should be assessing people monthly. There are tools and different things like that. We in Ingressive, we use Asana. So with Asana, when we create the process has steps, right? So for each step, that's an actionable item, something that is smart, something that is specific, measurable, attainable. I forgot the R, and then there's also the time part, right? So if you have SMART goals, these are things that I load onto Asana, and I'm able to put time frames and different things on there. So now what I'm able to do is when I'm reviewing my processes, or when I'm looking and seeing how productive people are, I can immediately see, are you late? Are you on time? Did you get it done early? Do you have an issue? Is there a communication that we need to have? Like, these are certain things where, for me, I use Asana as my control point and also to measure the productivity of my team. And those things that I'm finding out there, that's what I roll into my quarterly reviews. When it comes time for people asking for raises and different things like that, there's processes to all this. Again, when it comes to raises and with everything that everybody's doing, there's an expectation that gives people something to aspire to. That's another process. So with that being said, I know that sounded pretty simple, but I like to keep things quite simple because a lot of times people use $20 words to sell a $10 product. It's not that. It's the issue with processes and different things like that is not necessarily understanding how to create a process. It's being disciplined and consistent. Those are the two major things that where you may be looking at your processes and your operations and saying like, oh, well, I have my business plan or I have these things in place. Were you disciplined? Were you consistent? And then again, were you reviewing those things and understanding that, okay, I might have, without reviewing and testing your processes, you may find that once you do that, you were consistent to something that was not working. So with that being said, let me just jump in. There's another section. I want to make sure I don't talk you out of death. What time is it? 12:30. Power through the second one. Are there any direct questions or anything like that on creating processes?
I think once you're done, people can.
Once I'm done?
Yeah, people can raise their hands to ask, their own direct questions.
Okay.
As it relates to them, yeah.
Okay, so let's see. How do I make this as quick as possible? Okay, so we went through the processes. The next thing is the scientific method. So I'm sure that, hold on, I'm trying to move my notes around. So again, once you have created, the scientific method is mainly, I'm pretty sure in primary school or at some point people talk to you about that. I'll ask you, Peggy, because I feel like I'm looking at you directly in your face. Do you remember the scientific method from school back in the day? Was that something that was gone over? I went to like 17 different schools as a military kid.
I think basically then scientific processes were just steps that you had to take in the right quantity, right temperature, right environment every time to get the same result. And then sometimes you didn't get that result because maybe something in the environment had changed, you know, or the quantity wasn't right or something.
Perfect. That is exactly what you would do with your business. Are you in the right environment? Are you in the right space? Did you add in the right ingredients to get what you wanted to make? You walked into this thing with the process expecting a certain outcome. Did you get that outcome? Do you have a controlled environment where you know that you're doing the same things over and over and over again, so you know that you can effectively measure something? You know that, like, if one of the worst things I've ever done, because I used to work in the kitchen. I come from the kitchen back in the day. But one of the worst things you could do is you go and you cook something that's so delicious, that's so wonderful. You're like, I killed them. And then when it comes time to make it again, you cannot. You don't know what you put in there. You don't know what Salt Bay type of behavior or whatever you did to get that specific taste, because you weren't measuring, you weren't paying attention. You didn't approach what you were doing like with a scientific method. So that's what we want to talk about at this point. So let's see. Let me open up this other one. So let's just jump right in. So when you're approaching the scientific method, basically all you're doing is asking a question. So as a business owner, as a CEO, you're always asking a question. Do people want what I'm selling? How much of it do they want? And can I be profitable giving it to them? So you always want to make sure that you can't come into your business assuming that you know everything, that you're the smartest person in the room, that your business model is foolproof, right? It might have been, but if you're not regularly testing what you're doing, you're not going to be able to adapt. So you need to be, again, running your business like it's a science experiment. Because again, you can look at some people who are running, if you look, there's all these different examples. The people who were selling CDs right before MP3s came out. If you look at what was happening, where people who were opening and launching clubs and Legos and all these different places in 2019, and then 2020 hit, and it's like, oh, I got to figure out what we're going to do because people can't come inside. So there are all these different things where you just need to be making sure that you're asking the right questions of yourself and of your business. If you're trying to build a product, again, you're asking, what exactly do your customers need? Like, what is the core aspect of your business that should be solving the problem for your customers? Even if you already have an idea, you need to know exactly what problem you're solving. And again, that's the part where you're asking the question. It's solely around what problem you're trying to solve, what markets you're trying to get into, who wants what I'm selling. Some other questions. What will make somebody interested in engaging with you? What elements of your brand are most important to display? What media are being used by your target audience? These are all different things that you can approach within your business like a science experiment, right? So that's the question. That's where you start. The next part, where I think a lot of people get lazy and they fail, is market research. Research your customer. Research your environment. Research your market to understand what it is you're doing. Because the worst thing you can do is jump out there and put a whole lot of your friends, families, and fools' money behind a concept that you did not properly research and will not work correctly, no matter what you do. Again, if you want to sell a CD today, I don't care what price they give it to you. I don't care if they gave it to you for free. You can't sell it. You cannot. So like, you have to understand your market and where you're operating in. Just because it's shiny and reflects the light doesn't mean it's something you can use effectively. So once you know the most important questions for your brand, you need to find as much information as you can. For scientists, usually this is gathering research from other scientists and using it as a foundation to build on. For entrepreneurs, there are two main sources of research: potential customers and your competitors, right? So again, we know that within the African continent, it is hard to get hardcore data, especially on your competitors. But you can look at how they're operating. You can go and patronize their business. There's so many different ways that you can research your potential competitors where you can get information. And again, that's why a lot of times I would tell people, if you're working in Nigeria and other developing markets, the major source you're going to get your information from, you're going to have to look at your potential customers. You're really going to have to find a way to get out there into these streets and ask as many people as you can, whether it be through an online survey or any number of different things, to understand what people want from you. You have to take your research very seriously. You have to, again, when you're building out your processes, when you're building out your businesses, you have to understand, like, who is your target market? Part of this is where before, when we were talking about what are the outputs and what are the inputs, you have to kind of be considering who your target is, or who do you want to sell. So either A, your target audience is going to tell you what your inputs and outputs are, or B, your inputs and outputs are going to tell you who your target audience is. But you need to be looking at it from that perspective, like, who wants what I am selling? And again, you need to do that and build your own independent perspective. Your competitors will provide even more valuable information for you as well. Again, it's difficult, but you want to find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, and most important, how do you differentiate yourself from those competitors? So again, when you're doing your market research, that's one of those ideas that need to be floating in your head. Like, okay, I see how they're doing it, but how do I do it better? And again, that's going to lead you in a whole nother path for research, but that's what you're looking for. Again, you need to be able to create a unique value proposition. Of course, we've heard this all before, but something that distinguishes you from all the other competitors and companies in your space. And again, this is part of market research. So you're understanding what everybody's doing, what you want to do, and how that makes you different from everybody else. Once you kind of get all this market research and you've gathered all this information, you want to create what they call in science a hypothesis, but basically it's just, you want to create the plan. Like, I think that this is what I need to do to make things work. Again, like, scientists are looking at experimenting, and they're looking at, like, how do they think a particular system functions. But for business owners, it's on a broad scale. It's the business plan itself, but it's on a much smaller and irregular level. Business owners form a micro hypothesis on a daily basis. You form these small ideas, understanding that, okay, this person's not here. If I bring in this person, they're going to be able to fill the gap. Oh, we ran out of sugar, but we can substitute whatever it is. Like, there's so many different things, but you're creating these hypotheses every day. But what we're not doing in many cases is measuring them and experimenting with them in that way. We're not visualizing it as a science experiment. We're just looking at it like it's a job, or it's a company, or is this something we do? You have to kind of change your perspective when it comes to setting up your operations for your business. And again, look at it like a science experiment. Once you kind of created what you think your hypothesis or what your business or your business plan is going to be, again, just like we said in the previous part, again, this is the scientific method for creating a process. But again, once you've created what you think it is, it's time to test it. This is one of the most important steps. It's not merely to establish an idea. You have to put the idea to the test in both business and in science. So what you want to do is, like, if you're looking at a hypothesis such as women 18 to 35 will prefer this product to have a certain feature, you need to test it. This is where certain things come in, like A/B testing. Or to give you a better example, I send out a lot of emails every single day. We're always seeking donors and different things like that. And we need to be relatively aware of, is the donor letter that we're sending out, does it work? Is it a good letter? Do people like what we read? Do people like the font? Do people like how we position the message? Is it too long? Is it too short? There are all these things that we're taking into account when we're reaching out to these donors, but how do we test it? One of the ways we test it from the email marketing part is A/B testing, basically. So I send out one version, I send out another version, and I see, what are people more responsive to? So there are certain ways you can do this in your business as well. But again, you have, from the science perspective, you have your control and you have your variable. So you have the thing that you want to work, and you have the thing that, well, not the thing that you want, you have the thing that's the steady way normally that is always done. And then you have one way where you want to change and you want to tweak it to try to make it better. And you have to see which one is going to perform better. If you're selling cars only in black and white, and you start selling cars in red, and you see that all of a sudden all the red cars are flying off the lot and we're not selling as many as the black and white, you need to start painting your cars red. So it's one of those things where you just have to basically be testing your own theories. In the world of marketing, again, as I mentioned, You can look at content marketing to get the highest return on your investment. If you're looking at pay-per-click advertising and social media marketing and different things like that, you can see which one works better. Should I put this ad up on Google to pop up here? Should I put it on YouTube? All these different places. Should I do paid ads on Facebook? A lot of people will try all of these different things, but a lot of people aren't that hard on looking at it and saying, how did this impact my business? How many people came in? What did they do once they interacted with my business? Were they one of the ones contributing to a high bounce rate, or were they one of the ones that were reading something and adding to how long were people looking at my page and going on and looking at different pages on my website? Again, you have to kind of test it and be reviewing the results and looking at it intently and consistently. Next part is you want to review your data and form a conclusion. Did it work? Did it not work? If it worked, this is now a core process that we're going to do, and we'll wait, let's say, a little bit longer before we review it again. If it didn't work, then we're going to say, all right, that idea that we had was trash. We need to come up with something else. And then you're going to start that whole testing process all over again. Now, in the scientific method process, they tell you that as a scientist, they tell you that the next thing you would do is once you have something that works, you want to publish your results and invite others to expand on it and understand it as well. If you're a business person, you want to be able to position yourself as a thought leader. You do want to publish your results. You do want to tell people about your success. You do want to tell people about, without giving away the secret sauce, you do want people to understand that I'm a boss, that I've done things well, and you should come and talk to me, or you should look to me if you want to understand things in the space that I'm working in. So again, push yourself out there. Well, I guess I've said most of that. It's again, primarily positioning yourself as a thought leader in the space once you come out and created processes that actually work, whether it be outside or internally. Inside your company, maybe sometimes we do want to be the go-to person that everybody's coming to for answers and different things like that. But again, it's kind of just establishing it. When they say publish, it means that the things that you learned, the things that you found out, you want to write them down in a detailed manner that makes it easy to communicate with other people in your community, whether it be external or internal. So for me, that's most of the stuff. There's like pages and pages of notes and different things like that, but I looked at this clock ticking away. So I want to make sure that I leave some room for some questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, that was very insightful. I kept taking notes and notes like I was back in class, but that was really very insightful. I think sometimes we get carried away because it's really not being an entrepreneur, especially in Nigeria here, and especially when you have too many moving parts, you know. So yes, you come up with a process that you want to follow. Maybe you've tested the process, it works, but by the time you're landing with that process, sometimes there are too many variables, too many moving parts, and then you find out that it's almost as though you're doing it over and over again and starting or restarting over and over again. That's hard.
Let me give you one example before we jump into the questions. One perfect example was when I was doing some consulting for a overnight restaurant / club in Ghana, in Accra. So my client basically, he was a place that he was semi-busy. He had a good flow of customers and whatnot, but he was wondering why at the end of the day, his bar was always losing money. So he wasn't making as much money as he thought he was, or as he should be making. So his idea was that since I'm not making as much money, because he was only focused on the money, this is how much I spent and what I got back did not match. What's going on? So what he did was he basically started promoting his club more, started pushing and getting more and more and more people in. And then basically he saw that even though everything was packed, everything was full, that basically he was still losing money. What he didn't realize is that one of the most popular drinks on his bar basically had an ingredient that was stupidly expensive, and he was selling the drink at a loss. So because he did not understand what his processes were, the act of him stepping out and saying, if I want to make more money, I need to sell more drinks, was actually costing him more money, because he did not go and understand what inputs were going in to create the output that he desired. He thought that, oh, I made the drink, people love it, that's good enough. No, how much does it cost to make it? It's not just how much it costs to make the drink, but also to keep the lights on and the staff and all these other costs that you have in there. You're selling your drink at a loss and asking more people to come and take money from you.
Yeah.
So that's just, so sorry, please, anybody who has questions, feel free.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening out. Can we ask, questions as it relates to our business? Because the objective here too is also to make sure that everybody is able to, go away with something. So if you have a question, please ask away so we can talk about it. Thank you. Any questions?
I hope not mess anything up.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, hi Sean, thank you so much for this session. It's been very insightful. So my question would be, how do you maintain individuality when you, I'm so sorry. How do you maintain individuality when you have SOPs in place? How do you bring that human feel and it's not quite robotic in your team? So everybody is responding the same way, everybody's, using the same terms. How do you maintain a level of individual flavors when you have an SOP?
I think that so it depends on the business. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't necessarily care about individuality when I come up with these SOPs. I care about results. I care about people hitting the goals that we put out before them. And what I try to do is make sure that I compensate them in a way that either A, I compensate them straight out with money, or B, I compensate them with finding a way to tie their goals, dreams, and visions with the goals, dreams, and visions of the company. That's how I keep people motivated, but I don't necessarily understand. Again, okay, let me just ask. Yeah, what is the business where that it requires that people feel like they're individuals?
I'm sure I can add to. Okay, finish up, Kika. Sorry.
Yeah. So I lead communications and a social media team, right? Okay. So this means across various kinds of brands and businesses. And as much as you want certain principles to be followed, you do not want to limit people's creativity. So that's why I'm asking, how do you manage putting a system in place and ensuring that people also bring their creativity to work?
Gotcha. My thing is, it's in the way that I set up things. Primarily, it's my business is focused on execution. If you're executing, I don't bother you. I don't care how you get the job done, as long as it's like, within a certain, as long as it's legal and all that stuff is right, it's moral and all those different things. But I don't limit them. Some of the things that I do is like SOPs are great, but these are some of the times where maybe there's information that you leave to them or certain things that you take out. Again, where you're not walking them through everything step by step per se. So there is the thing where, like in the SOP, there are certain things that I want to be achieved, but you don't necessarily have to leave in the steps or this is a specific way I want you to do it. You be more specific with the outcomes that you want to see. I would say that's how I would do it. Well, that's how we are doing it.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kika. Someone else is asking, what tools are good to monitor a business remotely? That's from Essenza.
Let me see. I just wrote something down on here. So there's I just did an entire video on this. So There's so many different ones. So it just kind of depends on what you want. What are you looking into? So again, what we're using is Asana. So let me go down. So if you want to get started basically you want to start with, of course, access to internet. So your mobile hotspots, different things like that. But the next step is like making sure that you're able to take notes. So there's like Evernote, Google Keep, Notion, different things like that. If you're looking at what are we looking at? I'm trying to get to something that's a little bit more. So I'm a Google person. So when it comes down to tracking the team, I use a lot of the things in Google Suite. So being able to use Google Docs, Sheets, and different things like that, what that allows me to do is, especially if I have employees beneath me, where I can look and see at a Google Doc using version history control, I can look and see what was added, when it was added, and who it was added by when it comes to managing work. Again, I use Asana as the major tool I use to deploy information. But yeah, if you want to give me like some specifics, because there's so many different tools like Google Slides, Google Things. If you're talking about design, you have Figma, you have Canva, you have Adobe. If you're looking at productivity, if you're looking at remote desktop software, if you're looking at automation tools like Grammarly, Zapier, if you're looking at project management, you have Asana, Trello, Slack, Monday. There's cloud storage. I guess it kind of just depends on
what you're trying to track.
Yeah, but I would say what I use primarily, I would say to track people and get things done, set up performance, track goals, fulfill things. I use Asana. I use Asana in the. So again, Asana I keep all the documents and I'm very organized with Google Suite. So on Google Drive, basically, I'm able to.
That is that correct? Asana.
Yes.
Okay.
So Google Drive, you can set up departments in your company and have all the documents you would need to have on there. And then once you combine that with Asana, when you're speaking to certain things, when you're assigning certain things and you're adding the dates, the times, the whatever, you have the supporting information by providing links from Google Drive on Asana that allows people to kind of go in and see what you're talking about. But yeah, my major tool that I use is Asana. Now, when it comes down to like creating what you're going to be loading into Asana, that's a function of you sitting down, biting down, and kind of breaking down those processes step by step by step for each person. But once you get that, that's easy. You're just plugging into Asana.
Okay, thank you. Yes, share with the website here.
I would just send people like I have a YouTube channel and I have my website.
Okay,
but if
maybe you should type that. Can you type that in the chat too, so people can also get that information?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just type it in now.
I guess while you're doing that, maybe when you round off, so I can just do a catch up of the salient points that we learned, just in case anybody joined in late.
Okay. Okay. I think it's /resources. Let me check. I want to see 1 second. But yeah, we can start on the recap. I'm gonna send this. We can keep going.
All right. So I guess basically for us, the salient points we learned here is are two main categories, which is the progressive process and the scientific method. So for the progressive process, we have to be able to picture the process we want, build it, take cognizance of the different steps, and it must be measurable, especially the expected output we want to get from the inputs that we put in the system. And then when we create the process, we have to create each step and ensure that we have thought through exactly who's going to man each of the steps in the process. And then it's a process that we also have to continuously review because it's not cast in stone and it can actually, keep evolving. That's that's the main thing for me. And of course, the fact that we have to set boundaries, so it must be measurable. We have to be able to say when it starts, when it ends, what the triggers are, what the output should be, and all that. So when we're able to measure, it now helps us decide if really this product is what people want, or if it's actually not working, and then that would make us either go back or come back in. And for the scientific method, basically it's being a scientist, which is doing experiments and finding if it works. And then when you finally get the one that works, you publish it to establish that that is, what you have been able to create. So I think for me, that is what at least we got from it. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to ask, as it relates to their own business. But I also think that the conversation you had basically in describing the different methods was really very explanatory, and I guess a lot of us will go back and basically look at our entire process again and basically rethink some of the things we do. And for those of us that haven't concretely built our processes, I'm sure we'll go back and actively build them. And for those of us that have built processes long ago, but have not been consistent with reviewing the process, we will definitely go back and review that process. But I mean, I'll let you say a few words if there's no other questions, so we can close.
Okay, if there are no questions, thank you. Like I said, a lot of my clients, I would say, I don't want to say that they're lazy, but if you go to the website, I've given basically everything I do away for free. Typically, the people that I deal with, I say lazy jokingly, but these are people who have multiple businesses. They understand the value of time and different things like that, where, okay, if I can have somebody who knows what they're going, go and put the process together, then I can run them, those type of things. But I don't want people to make you believe that operations is rocket science. The problem is it's not cute, it's not sexy, it's not fun. It's just like life. A lot of times you see people in life who are having the time of their life, but on the back end, things are not going well. And it's only a matter of time before it falls apart. Don't run your business like that. Do not run your business like that. Pay attention to what's going on, do your work, do your due diligence, do your market research. And when you're done doing your market research some more and make sure that you're creating documents and you're recording. When you're doing any type of research or any type of process creation, do it. This is why I say publish your results. Do it like you're going to communicate and explain this to somebody else, because 9 times out of 10, at some point you will. So I'll leave it there. Again, it's always a pleasure to be here with the Venia Hub squad, the family.
It's always a pleasure having you around, Sean. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving of your time. And I also like to appreciate all of our CEOs that took time out of their extremely busy schedules to be here. I believe that we have all picked on a thing or two. Some of the things we already know, and some we just didn't pay particular attention to. But I'm very happy that we have learned something here today, and our businesses will be better for it. So thank you so much. We are most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, everyone. So the session today has come to an end. We will definitely keep having sessions like this. Our objective is to ensure that our businesses not only thrive, but scale and actually, begin to expand even to other parts of the world, that's against just in Lagos or Nigeria here. So thank you, everyone, for giving of your time. Sean wants to say something before we go.
Yeah. Large part of what I'm doing is trying to introduce African businesses to the U.S. markets and some other markets, particularly the U.S., because I have my things at. So yeah, anybody interested, I do free 15-minute consultations.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate everybody. I'm here to serve.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for that, Sean. We're really grateful. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again, Sean. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye.